You know, no matter how far I chisel into this, more routes just continue to pop up. And of course, while loading this, I'm at 209% completion of the overall game. However, I distinctly remember the total completion being like 300, so realistically, I'm only two-thirds of the way through this. Our last one, not for me, but for the viewers, was a Xeon run, so let's get some AEUG going. Also, let's finish this route, because it's just been sitting here and I haven't really been doing anything with it.
Quattro, ready to go. Here they come. What's wrong? Are you coming with us?
Yes, I am. I'm ready. I hate the Federation, and I hate those arrogant Titan snobs even more.
That's the spirit. All right, let's go. There's no one that I can count on more. Damn you! Next.
Yeah, so I was poking around the Gundam Wiki and discovered the Psycho Gundam Mark IV as a recommended page, and I was like, Mark IV? What happened to Mark III? And I guess Mark III was first created for one of those, it was like one of those Gundam fighter games, like, oh, I forget exactly how it's described, but they use the camera angle like a typical fighter. Yeah, the Mark IV G-Doors was featured in Moon Gundam, which was something I hadn't heard of, because it... right now it exists solely as a manga.
All mobile suits, don't fall behind.
And if you see video of it, because there is like video snippets of that, that's actually from a game which combines multiple different Gundam universes. But I guess there's talk of like that becoming an anime, because most of the manga is becoming an anime. I mean, Unicorn started off as a manga. And it worked when we consider the fact that part of the reason why Unicorn, for me at least, was so interesting was because it had loads of mobile suit variations, and the designs are fairly sophisticated on a detail level, and they can get away with that in a manga that they wouldn't have been able to get away with in a series, because in a manga, you're doing still frames, so you can pack as much detail into a panel as you want. But you need, you know, keyframers and in-betweeners and all this stuff if you're going to animate it. So simplistic designs and fewer of them tend to win out in an animated series. That is until they develop the ability to use CGI, where you can construct a virtual model and then either cel shade it in post or not, and that removed the problem of needing to pad back designs. So you end up with stuff like the Rizel, which is very sort of noisy in terms of the detail on the surface level. Yeah, Gundam Moon features designs that are associated with Gundam Sentinel, which took place between Zeta and Double Zeta. And I knew about that for a while, but that's another thing that hasn't been rendered in an animated format. And there's like Amuro's got a Rick Dija, and then there's the eponymous Moon Gundam, and it features a predecessor to the Sazabi.
You won't do any more damage.
And one of the interesting things about the eponymous Moon Gundam, of course, is that it's actually kind of a Franken mobile suit, because it's the head of the Psycho Gundam Mark IV, but the body of... I don't remember its name. It's the predecessor to the Sazabi.
Don't get in my way. Next.
And it's got half of the... they're not really funnels. They're Psycho Bits, or whatever, off of the Psycho Gundam Mark IV, and looks like a big crescent moon on its back. And the funny part is, if they're folded down, it looks like a predecessor to the new Gundam. It's a good look. I like it. But then again, I did like the Gundam Sentinel stuff. But again, Sentinel Gundam Sentinel, or I think I'm getting that right, had an enormous amount of detail packed into those mobile suits because, again, nobody had to animate them.
All right, let's go. I'm counting on your support.
You have still frames, and I mean, uh, there was like Sentinel, and then there was like Sentinel XS. I don't know. I know that it started off as a like separation combination transforming mobile suit akin to the Bawu, and then in its upgraded form, like XS Gundam, it became just a transforming mobile suit, I think. So that made sense as a kind of segue into Double Zeta, which could both transform and separate as separate functions. I mean, I think it was Sentinel that first featured, like, the Zeta Plus, which was the mass production atmosphere-only version of the Zeta that actually looks like a... kind of like a jet fighter when it's transformed, a bit less future-y, because it's got proper wings and stuff. But that was featured in Gundam Unicorn, because, again, those manga love to feature rare and exotic variations because they can get away with it. But now, of course, the animations can afford to get away with it, because they just, if they render the mobile suits in CGI, then the only animation element that's needed is the movement, the posing.
I finally found you, you AEUG thieves. Kill anyone who wants to make the sky blue.
This is you. We'll ambush him. Roger.
Oh, well, Lila didn't last long.
Don't get in my way. I won't let you.
Gun down, Rosamia. Yeah, I did that with a head Vulcan deliberately for that cherry tap victory. Been running smooth, but of course, it's only like a we're not into the like exotic routes. This is only what 2, 3 removed from Quattro's default victory condition, so much easier.
Quattro Vagina, ready to go.
Yeah, discover a new Gundam series, discover a fancy new mobile suit.
I guess
Apparently,
we'll
there's
have
like 2 versions of the Gundam, the Psycho Gundam Mark IV. The G-Doors version is the official version, but there's another one that was featured in another work that actually has fin funnels, and it's got like 14 fin funnels.
You're finished. All right. Take that. Idiot.
Thing is, the later versions of the Psycho Gundam sort of scaled back. Perhaps because having a mobile suit the size of, like, an oversized mobile armor was a bit much. Then again, in Beltorchika's Children, Char wasn't using the Sazabi, he was using the Nightingale, which is basically a combination of the Sazabi and the Alpha Izeru.
Don't get in my way. Good move.
I think it was in Beltorchika's Children where they first introduced Hainu, because it was basically just like an alternative of New Gundam.
You're too slow. Idiot.
Ha! Thing is, my sort of wish list of mobile suits to sort of be in the new, like, free-to-play Gundam installment keeps expanding. Although, my concern, of course, being that there are so many mobile suits I'd like to pilot, but yeah, the fact that it's probably going to break down where you can only, like, afford, without spending a bunch of real money, to spec, like, 2, 3 at the most mobile suits. It's like, well... And then there's, of course, the fact that because of that, you're probably going to be sticking with a mobile suit that's available at launch, because that's the mobile suit you have the most time to grind on. Stuff that's introduced later, you'd have to start over again from scratch. Oh, it's just such a... It's a dodgy model. It's a dodgy model to use. Oh, Roberto almost made it through that alive.
We're withdrawing. All mobile suits, don't fall behind.
Ah, yes, the one where we have to be extra on our guard.
Quattro, ready to go.
Get that bonus route. Which probably won't be in this video, because the standard route takes an hour, nearly, in and of itself.
Here they come.
Not that there's anybody left to even, like, roll it in with, so... It'd be a pretty nonsensical amalgamation of footage wherever it gets added into. You used your anti-ship missiles? Really? Oh, look who it is! Okay, that's Shirako down. Oh, that Hyzak went down real quick. I'm coming for you.
Men become so vigorous and resourceful when it comes to air.
Yeah, that comment of Emma's has an interesting speciation theory attached to it. Doesn't really apply to mammals as much, but
Amuro, sharp. Don't get in my way.
uh-oh. Oh, the building. Okay, that clinched it. Yeah, because I probably mentioned in passing when Emma says that men become so vigorous when it comes to war. It's like, well, yes, but that's sort of the point. Because in groups outside of mammals, males are smaller, typically, than the females. Because the reproductive infrastructure of the male is usually less sophisticated. So there's a tactic used in order to ascertain which genes are superior. And that's you produce a bunch of males, like way more than the females, and they fight it out. Presumably, in an ideal situation, the males who survive this reproductive battle royale end up, you know, passing on their genes to a subsequent generation. So, of course men are vigorous, when it comes to the conduction of war, because it's just another pageant, another peacock display of earning reproductive favor.
Counting on your support.
Like that whole speech by what's his name in Westworld, that all of our development and technology, regardless how sophisticated it is all just an elaborate peacock display to try and earn a mate.
Sending out the mobile suit teams. Relay that to all the gunners. Roger. I'll get you. I'll get you. All right.
And of course, the speech there highlights the fact, and it's delivered by Anthony Hopkins, which just makes it even better. The speech there highlights the fact that, you know, sure, what we have accomplished is indeed impressive from an objective standpoint, but can you really accredit it that level of import if it's genuinely done for the most primitive of reasons?
Humbrubby team, Barzam team, let's go. We'll move in when the anti-air fire dies down. The Barzams will take the rest. Roger that, Lieutenant Yazan.
I mean, they made a similar point in Battlestar Galactica.
As always, you're taking us straight to the middle of battle, Yazan.
Baltar is considered finally minted a man when he's finally killed someone, that being Crash Down on Kobol. And she points out that it's the human legacy. I would go a step further and say that it's the legacy of all living creatures. Yes, he comments on how unfair it seems that, you know, despite technology and arts and everything else, that the enduring human legacy is murder. Thing is, of course, it's only we smart animals that get so caught up in these types of preoccupations because, you know, meerkats kill their own all the time for competition over mating or territory or so. It's hardly a uniquely human condition. But again, there's that ever-present human self-importance where we have to somehow make ourselves distinctive from the rest of the organisms on the planet. I did not want to lunge that close to Yazan. I mean, for me, technology just feels like the next stage in evolution, and not necessarily the next stage in human evolution. That's not my point. Like, we're not going to become cyborgs or whatever. It's just that evolution is, of course, a big random process that takes place over millions of years, and it's slow. That's the big problem. It's a slow process. Sometimes it can be too slow, because evolution is not as it is traditionally thought of, an upward process. It's a process of adaptation. When the environment changes, the organism has to change to suit it, or it disappears from the fossil record. It goes extinct.
I guess we'll have to see.
And that's the thing, though. Intelligence, you know, calculation, invention, compresses evolutionary adaptation into something that can occur over generations rather than millennia. And that's kind of like a meta-contextual evolutionary leap. Because now, all of a sudden, you know, we can adapt and change and develop at a much faster speed through technology and through intelligence in design, as opposed to the randomness of genetics. That's why I feel that that's probably the next stage in evolution. Because evolution itself evolves, evolution itself adapts. It gets better. And we sort of hit the limits as to what can be accomplished through genetic evolution, so instead we have technological evolution.
Don't get in my way. I'll get you. Nothing. Take that. Take that. You're slow.
But again, all of that falls by the wayside when you make the cardinal error of believing that humans are somehow distinct from all the other life forms on the planet. We're special. We're the center of the universe. The sun orbits us. Humility. Humility as ever. Very important. How'd you get friendly fire, Jared? I just gotta pop this last Isaac. Made that a lot easier on myself. I just destroyed the Psycho Gundam. They make it squishy enough in the mission. Because in a previous route, destroying it is supposed to lead to the bad end, so why make it difficult?
We're withdrawing. All mobile suits, don't fall behind.
I don't know, my notions on the context of evolution as a meta-context, or no, technology as a meta-context for evolution is just musings. I couldn't quote you some sophisticated peer-reviewed piece on the subject. Not that I don't read those.
I guess we'll have to see.
The trouble with evolution, of course, is the time scales involved. It's difficult to have a concise notion of what leads to what and how, because it all happened millions and millions of years ago. Even anatomically modern humans, you're talking between 300,000 to 100,000 years ago. You know, human civilization's recordings only date back about 10,000 years at the most. So we have to infer a lot of what we know. We don't actually know it with any absolute certainty. Not that we know anything with absolute certainty. I mean, that's the thing the scientists have to point out about how people get misinformed when scientists, you know, abbreviate or liken things to other things that misses the technical point of the message, but gets the concept across for a person who doesn't understand the details. You know, the old Star Trek analogy, where in order to allow the audience to understand, somebody makes an analogy to something entirely common to make something extremely technical make sense. The irony being, of course, is that the technical excuse is this thing that somebody pulled out of their ass. What they were operating on was the basic analogy, because that's what the writer does. The writer doesn't know how a warp drive works. My father used to have a saying with regards to that, look, if the writers knew how a faster-than-light device could or would operate, they'd be making far more money selling that technology than writing a story about a science fiction. And that's the reality of the matter, of course. But of course, people sweat the details to no end, and I swear that part of that isn't even an issue of, does this enrich the story? No, not really. What it does is make you look like you're more passionate about the lore. And it's like, can we all just be fans? Do we not have to, like, measure each other's, you know, beam sabers here to find out who's the bigger fan? I mean, no wonder everybody thought it was such a dick punch where the sequel trilogy decided to void what is now known as Star Wars Legends, because there was so much lore there that people loved and obsessed over. And, you know, I know stuff beyond the films, because I read the comics, or the books, or the graphic novels, or played the games that are considered canon. And then all of a sudden, it's not important anymore. It's all Legends, none of it's canon. Because ultimately, the canon doesn't belong to the creators. The canon belongs to the license holders. And when the creators choose to sell that license, their baby now belongs to usually whichever soulless corporate shill decides to buy it. I mean, that's why I have loads of respect for Shiro Masamune. Because the reason he works alone, well, yeah, the reason he works alone is because he wants no creative interference. None. It's his story. He wants to tell it. Period. Full stop. That's it. That's not gonna work so well. Oh god, in yellow. Yeah. Well, here's the problem. If Hyakushiki, I gotta deal with the shotgun. The, like, stupid shotgun bazooka thing. I'm just gonna go with a proper bazooka. Make my life easier.
Quattro Bagina, ready to go. Here they come.
That's the thing. Modern entertainment, as opposed to classical art, is built for expression and for creating ideas and concepts, but it also serves a utilitarian purpose for a company. It makes money. You know, artists back when were creating things because they wanted to make something beautiful or something challenging. It was an elaborate form of expression that was persistent beyond just, you know, this is a thing. But things like TV series and movies and so forth, they serve an agenda for the creation of capital, and fundamentally where there's money to be gained there and something with lore that can be twisted or altered to suit the needs of a modern writer or modern studio or modern audience.
Where is it? Where's the system's core?
Because that's the thing, because fans want their canon to be the right canon. They don't want a head canon. I'm always entertaining the head canon. Because fundamentally, there are many stories, especially when you, like, indulge in more complex works, where not all the questions are definitively answered, so some things are left to the viewer to figure out. And the thing is that different viewers disagree in terms of what exactly the answer to the question is, how exactly that plot thread is tied appropriately. So there, you're always down to your headcanon as opposed to everybody else's headcanon. You know, maybe it was aliens, or maybe she just did slip on a banana peel. I mean, in the dub commentary for the end of Evangelion, they kept debating the symbolic aspect of every shot, but eventually one of them pointed out the fact that maybe it's nothing. Sometimes a window is just a window, sometimes a clock is just a clock. There is no symbolic value, it's just a thing that exists. There's no reason, there's no need to read any further into it than that. And that's the point, don't go overcomplicating it. Thing is, like Laserpig pointed out about the keep it simple principle. It's important to remember that the point of the principle is to keep a design no more complex than it needs to be for the job it has to do. Because if you just interpret the keep it simple principle at face value, it's like, well, more basic technologies must therefore be superior because they're simpler. And it's like, again, misunderstanding the fact that the jobs that modern aircraft and military vehicles have to perform in a modern battlefield with battlefield networking and interlinking and all of that is far more sophisticated than 30, 40 years ago. So the machine must, by extension, be more sophisticated. The goal, however, is not to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. But you can make it as complicated as you need to get to that point. I mean, imagine if life followed that, like, basic,
I'm returning.
incredibly basic interpretation of the keep it simple principle, where it's like, oh, well then the optimum life form would be like a slime mold. Because it's about as sophisticated a multicellular life form can become. Or, let's go a step further. Let's say you don't need to be multicellular. Why not just an amoeba? Why not just an amoeba? Oh, God. No, there was a study
All right, let's go. I'm counting down.
by science people, by people who actually analyzed this, that worked out, and I find it incredibly validating that they came to this
Good.
conclusion
All
that
hands, stay alert.
stupidity and the people who perpetrate it upon the world, these stupid people, is the most dangerous human force imaginable. So we'll have to put in another upgrade. Oh boy.
All right, let's go.
Forget recover, go assault. Hit him hard, hit him fast. Do it like Char would.
I guess we'll have to see.
So on the previous attempt of this, which I have to reiterate, because now that no longer exists, at least not for the purposes of this video. I'm not sure if I started before I actually did the battle again. That's a weird thing with an LP format, because playing and talking at the same time, your brain kind of just starts spewing stuff. It's very Ulysses, if you take my meaning. Stream of consciousness. But no, some sciencey people figured out that, like, stupid action, and those who frequently perpetrate it, stupid people, are by far the most dangerous human force, at least, on the planet that exists. It's bad.
You're not getting away.
Take that, not bad. It's not over yet.
Too easy. Too easy.
Great, a cross counter.
You're too slow.
Problem is, I'm a lot squishier than he is. And that's the thing, because stupid activity, the activity of stupid people fall into this
All right.
weird thing where fundamentally they are like the rogue waves of human behavior. No rhyme, no reason, they just come out of nowhere and sink your fucking ship. Because they just do things. Because they don't have the ability to concoct a more reasonable design. They just randomly
Enemy?
come up with something and they fuck it up.
Down you go. Nice. Ah!
And they created like a grid, determinant based on whether your activities are helpful or hindering to you or others. And the smart people go up in like the top right, where it's beneficial to you, beneficial to others. The naive go on the top left, beneficial to others, not beneficial to themselves. Bandits are in the bottom right, where it's beneficial to them, but harmful to others. And then the stupid people are in the bottom left of not beneficial to themselves, not beneficial to others. It's like, well, why would they do it if it's not beneficial to them? Because they don't know any better. They're fucking stupid. God, have I got stories from the classroom of my youth of just having to work with some of the biggest idiots imaginable. But that'll be for probably not next video, because again, I have to splice this bit with something else to make something else.